just gathering my thoughts before we actually speak today, right? Divine Rise, thank you for coming in and joining me this AM. It is a Saturday, October 26th, 8:43 a.m. here on the East Coast. And it was in my spirit, in my heart, in my mind to deliver a message today. Some words of encouragement, some words to think and reflect upon, okay? And this is something that I am, personally from my journey, and I feel like, by me having that spiritual insight, wisdom, and guidance to this particular topic, I can share with you, a word of encouragement, inspiration, because everyone goes through it, right? Some more than others. But I'm gonna wait a little bit. This right here is honey and oregano oil. I am working on overcoming a cold, or whatever this is, because, I got it from my daughter, and it's just been very rampant, because not only in my household, a few other people that I know, they've been having like a cough and respiratory issues, and it almost makes me wonder, and it was brought to my attention about here in Georgia, and I think that was Conyers, Georgia, or it was either Conyers or Covington. I think it was Conyers, Georgia. There was a biolab, chem lab that blew up a few Saturdays ago. And what they said was it was a plant where they made pool products. So there was an explosion, but it was a chemical explosion. So it released chemicals in the air. And for like maybe a week or so, they had an alert out for air quality, because when this lab exploded, it released chemicals in the air. Chlorine, I believe they said. But maybe like a few days after, I was driving Uber or Lyft. Sometimes I do that from time to time. And I had a rider that I had to pick up in Conyers. And I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta go into Conyers? But I noticed this like smell in the air prior to even getting into Conyers. I was still in Atlanta, like on the outer skirts of Atlanta or something like that. It was like a different city. I remember dropping off my the passenger prior to picking up in Conyers. I remember as I was entering into their destination, it was an apartment complex, and I was smelling chlorine. I'm like, okay, not putting two and two together. Good morning, Louise. Good morning, Divine Rise. I'm not putting two and two together, and I'm like, it smells like chlorine. Okay, that's clean smelling. And so I dropped them off, and then when my next queued ride was displayed, I saw I was going into Conyers, and I was like, oh, you know, fear kind of set in, like, oh, I'm about to be out here. I really, and that's what I was trying to avoid, was riding out that way. So, you know, I don't do this often. I don't lift off. Okay, no, I'm sorry. I could have read that, Louise. Louise loves Alicia. I'm sorry, girl. But yeah, so I'm riding out on, I think it was 20, going one of those ways, and it's starting to become even more clear that it smells like chlorine. Until I got to like a certain part on the freeway, there was a sign on the side of the road that said, roll up your windows. And I'm like, okay. So I, you know, my windows were already up because a red flag went off in my mind that I was going into Conyers. So I already rolled up my windows prior to even entering in and turning off my AC. So once I got into the thick of it, it was like really, really hazy. And like the smell, like you couldn't catch your breath for real if you wanted to. Like if you wanted some clean air in Conyers in that particular area, you wouldn't have no clean air. There was no room for like, okay, let me get a breath of fresh air. No, it smelled like straight up chlorine. Like you couldn't like step away from that. So, you know, I'm riding through this, and you know, I'm like, okay, whatever. Put my shirt over my mouth and continue to ride. But like in my mind, I'm like, what they trying to do? That was like my question, like, what they trying to do? So I was talking to my child's father a couple of days ago, and he's been concerned that I've been sick, and that, you know, my children are sick. And mind you, we're not together, but he was concerned, and he was like, yeah, I'm concerned because of that chemical explosion that we had. I was like, you know what, that's crazy, because, you know, I had that thought too. He was like, yes. He was like, a lot of people are sick, and it's respiratory issues, and it's making me think like, you know, it was whatever they released in the air. You know, they saying it's only a certain radius, but ain't no telling, because, you know, it travels. And that goes to say, when I was in Atlanta, like a certain part of Atlanta, I could actually smell the chlorine. So, you know, and all that to say, ain't no telling, you know, what's going on, why I'm sick, but, you know, I'm fighting. I'm fighting, you know, and the only thing that I know to do is to build my immunity, whatever it is, and cleanse the body. Like, I don't necessarily ingest pharmaceutical drugs, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I mean, especially if that's your preference and your choice. But me personally, like, it may be rare that I will take something to alleviate an issue. When this first kicked in, I was like, oh, I'm not trying to get sick. It started off as like a dry cough, a dry, sharp cough, and it wouldn't produce any type of relief or mucus. So I'm like, oh, I'm about to nip this in the bud. So I took, you know, generic cold and flu tablet, 2 of them, and I only did that once. And I took like some emergency, you know, several times during the day to you know, try to nip whatever was going to nip in the bud. But, you know, it developed. But in the process of it developing, you know, it went from a dry cough to like a crunchy cough that you can kind of like hear in my voice. Like I'm a little bit hoarse now. You know, a lot of mucus production. And during this whole process, all I did was like try to build my immunity. Like I changed the way that I was eating. I stopped eating certain things that produce inflammation and mucus, which is dairy. But I'm not really eating dairy like that anyway. But like I was eating like fish and vegetables, and I even eliminated fish. Like I even took it a step further and just started eating alkaline foods because, you know, I've done my research from learning from Dr. Sabi, and he said the #1 cause of disease in the body is inflammation. Inflammation turns into mucus. You know, inflammation is mucus. So the best thing that you can do is to alleviate any type of issues in your body is to eliminate mucus. And so that's what I've been doing, okay? I've been taking my herbs that's going to build my immune system, you know, because I shouldn't have gotten sick like this. Like my immune system should have been on on guard, and by me getting sick, this is showing me exactly what I need to do to you know, solve the issue or bring some sort of resolve. So that goes to say this right here that I have is honey and oregano oil. Oregano oil is awesome at as an antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. It helps to build your immunity. You know, it's all that good stuff. With some honey. Honey is awesome. Oregano oil is very strong. It's very strong, but you know, I keep some on deck. I have like a whole medicine cabinet because, you know, I prefer natural remedies. So, you know, with that being said, ooh, that burn. I'm telling you, it burns. Excuse me. I hate taking pills too. Well, I'm a recovering addict, so I try to stay away. Since I started my soul searching journey, I've noticed I haven't been sick to the point I need to take pills. God is good, because I usually get really sick every year, and that didn't happen this year. I'm praying you're going to get better. Oh, I'm already better. Thank you. And that's amazing that you know, you've been on your journey and you haven't been sick. I usually don't. This is like maybe the first time this year I've been sick. So, you know, and I will most definitely say that resonates with me too. Like, since I've really came on a spiritual journey, it's rare that I get sick. But like I was saying, this is just showing me where I could step it up a notch, because one of the things that I do teach is your immunity is your protection, even on a spiritual note. And I've been slacking. I've been slacking. So, you know, that just goes to say, you know, when you are who you say you are, you got to be about what you say you're about, right? But let's talk about, let's get into today's topic. You know, I just wanted to share that as a sidebar and possibly some jewels and gems for this AM. You're welcome. So, with all that being said, even with the experience of, you know, that I shared about being afraid to go into Conyers, you know, we're gonna speak on that spirit of fear, okay? Because fear is something that I'm dealing with heavily right now, and I know that I'm not the only one. I know that there's other people dealing with it, or even like experiencing it. Okay, fear, and it could be anything. It could be anything. It could be, you know, changes. You know, mainly changes that could be unexpected, changes that, you know, you might not necessarily be ready to make, or, you know, just, you know, things looking kind of funny. So we're going to talk about that spirit of fear, okay? You know, I want to say this, like, fear, depending on what lens you're looking at it from, fear can be a very, very, very beautiful thing. Very beautiful thing. It's just all in your acceptance of it, you know? But before we even get started, let's just give thanks, you know? Let's give thanks. Because we've come so far as a collective, you know, life be lifing. And, you know, these past few years have been very, very challenging, and a lot of people have not had the opportunity to really, really catch a breath, you know. Grand Rising Ash. You know, and I'm just thankful that, you know, you all are here with me this AM. You know. And I wanted to share this word despite me not feeling 100%, because, as I said, I know this is something that I'm personally going through, is the energy of fear. So recently, I've been working with a mentor, a teacher, you know, and it turned out to be so much more than what I expected, because I initially sought out the service of, you know, this beautiful being that goes by Seven, the Alchemist, and he does so much, but he also promotes himself as a branding manager. So I've been going through this phase in my life where I know it was time for me to change. You know, I've been doing the work. I've been, you know, the spiritual work behind it. I've been saying my prayers. I've been doing magic and everything else, especially when it comes to establishing the modern day sage as a business, like I really want to. You know, I've been doing this since 2016. The modern day sage has been established since 2016. And I've been putting in so much energy, so much work, tears, blood, sweat into my brand. But to me, it's still not exactly where I want it to be. And there's so much more room for growth 9 years later. So, I finally took the advice of my cousin, who told me, you need help. You need someone who's going to help you. And I finally took the advice of my cousin and reached out to Seven, who does the brand management. Man, first and foremost, my cousin told me this several years ago. And the only reason why I didn't do it was because I was afraid. I was afraid that I could not afford the services of someone coming in to help me. And I don't necessarily think I voiced that per se, but just on like pure curiosity, I reached out to Seven and just wanted to, make that connection, because I just, like, in my mind, I'm like, I really want to work with him so he can help me with my brand. So I reached out, we had a brief conversation, and I told him the reason why I hadn't sought help yet was because of my budget. And what he said to me was, you cannot limit the divine. And that was my cue in, like, okay, let me go ahead and face this fear. I found out how much it was. I was like, oh, that's really not in the budget, But we gonna make it. We gonna make something happen. And with that knowledge of knowing, like, and that intent of, it's got to be something beautiful. It got to be something else beyond this. Because this place of stagnancy that I'm in my business, and just in life, or the stunted growth. I'm like, I surrender. I need help. So I started working with Seven. And after our first conversation, I had immediate clarity. Like, I knew exactly what I wanted from my brand, and just niching everything the way that I needed to niche it. And I told Seven this, and he was like, well, you are working with the alchemist. I am the alchemist for a reason. And I just knew then that connection was divine. So since then, I've been given instructions on what I need to do as far as showing up more, because I don't show up. And that's another thing. The reason why I don't show up is because of fear. Like, what am I gonna say? What do I have to say? What could I possibly say to people that, would even be worthy of listening to? Fearing that I'm not gonna be seen, fear of not being heard, a fear of being judged. All those things kept me from really showing up. So, he said that. He said, initially during our first conversation, he said, oh, you have a fear of being seen. I was like, no, I don't. I was like, no, I don't think that's it, because and then as I continued on with the weekly meetings, I'm like, yo, I do have a fear of showing up. So I've been going through my own transformation when it comes to facing these fears. Like, even like speaking to you guys on this topic, like actually making it like a full-blown topic, you know, it's like I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and facing that fear. But reeling it back in, you know, because we are all going through this collectively. We all are going through something, you know, where you're going to have to show up or not, you know, like, first and foremost, you know, we all know what fear is. You know, fear is that thing that that you feel in your body that makes you feel like there's some sort of danger or threat, and you have to protect yourself. It's an emotional response, you know, but we have to be mindful of what emotions are. You know, emotions are energy and motion. So that's what I'm saying. Fear is so beautiful because depending on your response to fear, whether you're fighting, you're in flight mode, or you're paralyzed, you know, that's still energy, and you being the master over your own energy. Okay? But once again, so we know that fear, you feel it in your body, it's an emotional response. You know, that's the definition of fear. But if we really truly look at fear and what it truly stands for is false evidence appearing real. You know, false evidence appearing real because here it is, we have this perceived threat. We have this perceived threat, this perceived danger, like whatever that may be. You may be afraid of, you know, walking down the street at night, you know, by yourself because of the neighborhood that you stay in. We just using this as an example. Or just because of the times that we're in, you know, being out after a certain time, there's a perceived fear there. So let's just think about it, like, or just imagine, like, you know we hate walking at night down our street because of the activity that goes on at night. And it's this one particular time where you find yourself having to walk out on the street at nighttime. Your immediate response, your initial response would be to think of the worst case scenario. Like, oh my God, I hate this. Oh my God, like, oh, I gotta be on alert, you know. You start sweating, your heart start racing, you start having these feelings of anxiety. You know, you may even take a moment and start like procrastinating, you know, slowing down your walk, or you could even start like walking even faster. But, you know, you find yourself like hurdled in, or like, you know, trying to protect yourself, like closed, guarded. That particular energy, that fear, is causing you to respond in 3 different ways. Either you gonna run like hell, you gonna jog all the way home, especially if somebody try to talk to you, you gonna be like, keep on going. 2, You're going to kind of procrastinate. You're going to probably like stay wherever you are a little bit longer, you know, until you finally have to go. Or 3, you just going to like freeze. You going to freeze. You know, you might be stuck somewhere, you know, or like, let's say that someone do approach you, you might be stuck and not say anything, you know, like that's like the most extreme case of people getting paralyzed, especially in that type of situation. But, you know, those are responses to fear. So, you know, with fear, we have a certain energy that we could work with, okay? And I forgot to mention, like, as far as the response, you know, when you're in fear, those are your responses. But if you allow yourself to feel the fear and rise above it, that's when you defeat fear, conquer fear, you know, travel through fear to the other side of where you're trying to go, to your destination, or to like whatever that may be, you know. So a lot of times when we are fearful, we attach certain worst case scenarios to that particular situation. And a lot of times what we don't realize is, like, you know, our thoughts are self-manifesting. It can become like a self-manifesting prophecy, especially if that's something that we constantly keep our mind on as far as that fear. You know, whatever you focus on, it magnifies. So if you're focused on fear, it's going to magnify in whatever situation it may be. So, with that being said, you know, we have this energy of fear that we absolutely can transcend. But what I do want to mention is, like, now that we're in Scorpio season, and I believe this is the reason why, one of the reasons why, like, fear is most definitely a topic for me per se, is because we're in Scorpio season. Okay, I feel like all my fears are right here on the table for me to deal with them. Like, I feel like this is a very monumental time, especially with the work that I've been doing. And I like, this isn't just for me. I feel like this is collectively, especially if you are aware. And that's why I'm trying to put you up on game now, you know, with you having to face your fears. So we're in Scorpio season. We've had a portal of 2 powerful eclipses, a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse, you know, and boom, here we are, you know, probably second new moon after the solar eclipse, or the eclipse. So, excuse me. I don't know if it's the first or second. Anyway. And then we have this new moon coming up on the 27th, I think, tomorrow. I think it is tomorrow. Let me see. I think we have a new moon in Scorpio tomorrow. So, message, okay? Because I'm feeling this energy. I'm telling you, I'm feeling this energy. I'm all over the place. And the reason why, I just want to see real quick, when is this new moon? Because the energy is magnified. I feel it. That's why I felt, oh no, okay. I'm tripping. So the new moon in Scorpio is November 1st. I should have remembered that. I knew that. Friday, November 1st. Because I think that's the Day of the Dead, or the day before the Day of the Dead. But, with the season of Scorpio, this is an opportunity to transform. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Traditionally Mars, but Pluto. Pluto energy is the energy of transformation, power, and regeneration. So this is a season where, you know, you're going to go through some sort of transformation. It's just what you choose to do with it. You know, things are going to be transformed. It's either going to be on the light side of things, or, you know, on the dark side of things. But also with the Scorpio energy, it's giving you the power to face these fears so you can transform. It's giving you the power to regenerate. So if you went through some things, you know, you didn't lost a couple of things, this is your opportunity to regenerate. Okay, so utilize this energy. But by it also, traditionally, Scorpio traditionally being ruled by Mars. Mars is that energy of passion, aggression, and just getting things done. Taking action. It's a planet of action, fire. So, since we're dealing with these two different energies, this is your opportunity to take action in your transformation. A lot of times people are afraid of change. But on the bigger scope of things, all change is transformation. Okay? And when you use the energy of transformation properly, you can change your life for the best. So, you know, this is a possibility why these fears are being magnified. One, we're coming into like this new moon energy, which is all about new beginnings and manifesting and things of that nature. And this is your opportunity to face those fears, those things that, let's say, that your new beginning has for you, that your fear has been holding you back from. Let me take a sip of tea. Hold on. I feel my throat getting a little raw. All this talking. So, I'm drinking some burdock root, and it's detox tea that has many other herbs meant to detox the body. I'm telling you, I am not playing. Alright, so I have to take a sip real quick. Being that we are in this season of Scorpio, the season of Scorpio, or even the Scorpio, let's just talk about the Scorpio on a metaphysical level and what the Scorpio represents in its true primal state. In its true primal state, it is I don't want to say it. What is it? It's a I don't want to say insect, what is the actual term for, or the classification for Scorpios or for scorpions? Let's talk about the actual animal. Let's see. Anthropod? Scorpion. I gotta look this up because it's gonna like forever be on my mind. You know how you know something and then you forget it. An arachnid. Arachnid. That's how you say it? Arachnid? Arachnid? Yeah, I knew it was something like that. So, arachnid. There you go. You know, Scorpios are ground level, and so those particular animals have a protective mechanism in them, which is their stinger that releases venom. Okay? By it being on ground and like a part of the smaller class of insects, whenever they feel threatened, they use their stinger. Okay? And so I can see how a Scorpio may be in a perpetual state of fear or in that survival mode. When you're in survival mode, you're on attack. You know, you can be. You can be in that place of being on attack. Once again, fight, flight, or being paralyzed. So, and you know, a lot of animals, they play dead too. But that's the very primal nature of a Scorpio. But if we're looking at the Scorpio from a spiritual, metaphysical perspective, when the Scorpio ascends, it goes from ground to flight and transforms into the ego. When you rise a little bit above your situation, you're able to see things from a bird's eye perspective. Okay? So where you may be seeing things all in your face, if you rise a little bit higher into your higher self, taking a more spiritual perspective on your circumstances and those things that you may have been afraid of, you have a better perspective. You could soar a little bit higher, get out of whatever situation it is, you know, have an advantage over that, and be able to make choices from that space. But the even higher state of the ego, the Scorpio, is the Phoenix. You go from a place of soaring to a place of total destruction and transforming into your highest version, which is the Phoenix. Your majesty, your highest potential, your avatar. So this energy right here that we're facing, if you continuously decide to face your fears and level up, this is your gateway to ascending to your divine nature. You know, and that's not for everybody. That's not for everybody. Because sometimes that fear have people in a chokehold. That's all they can see is that fear. When you are fearful, it also blocks you from your natural intuition and your connection to source, because what you're saying is, oh, this fear is bigger than my faith. This fear is bigger than God. God can't help me with this. Spirit can't help me. You know, like, this fear is going to be to my demise. And a lot of people see fear like that. Like, all reasoning is thrown out the door. People stop thinking it when they're faced with fear. But there's ways around that. There's ways around that, and we'll get to that. But we're still, you know, we're talking about this transformation. You know, fear has a job. Fear is doing what it's supposed to be doing, y'all. You know, I don't think we'll ever, maybe, especially once you become a master of it, but I don't think we'll ever not feel fear. It's just how you respond to it. You know, I think fear is there for a reason. Fear is that energy, or fear produces that energy that's needed to make change happen in one way or another, right? You know, fear most definitely has a job. Once again, I honestly don't feel like fear is meant to hurt us. But it's that energy that makes you feel like there's something to be afraid of, or there's something that could be possibly dangerous or a threat to you, to protect you. You know, without that natural, you know, fear is good. Fear is good. That's what I'm saying. Fear is good. And that's why it's so beautiful, because ultimately, fear's job is to protect us. You know, if you fearful and, you know, something's telling you not to do something, you don't do it. Because it might be saving your life. But then that's when we have to realize, like, are my fears irrational? Do I have a reason to fear this? You know, you got to start asking yourself questions to determine, like, what type of fear is it? And where is it coming from? And even if it's rational, you know, a lot of times we've become so afraid of everything. Not just the stuff that you're supposed to be afraid of, but even just living life. Anything that could be different, anything that could put you in what you may consider harm's way or in danger. And that's when we have to start examining, like, you know, deeper issues. Like, so, for example, let's say that you have a fear of public speaking and it stops you from even having your voice heard. Like, is that rational? Like, what can happen? if you go before like a crowd and start publicly speaking? Someone's gonna assassinate you? Is that your fear, or like is it like humiliation? But what's the worst that can happen even in that situation? What? You're gonna be embarrassed? you gonna feel like you look stupid? You know, that's when we like have to determine, like, is that our ego? Like, is it really a perceived threat, or is it like a threat to the ego? You know? But fear, it protects us. Ultimately, when it's meant to protect. But if it falls on the end of, you know, it being irrational, then fear has a tendency to hold us back, delay, stop, create obstacles, create stagnancy. You know, from whatever it is that we're trying to achieve or become. Fear holds us back from our dreams, from our goals. And that's what I was sharing with you earlier. Personally, how fear has affected me. In my mind, I know that, and that's another thing, fear will have you all in your head, you know, not living that out. But in my mind, I know who I know who I am. I know what it is that I desire to do, and I always see myself doing it. But fear had its chokehold on me, especially when it came to like business. And the reasons why is because of failure, or possibly looking stupid. You know, I've never done this before. I never had a business before. I just one day decided that I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 ever again. As most people do who do go into business sometimes. As most people do. And like I said, that was years ago. I made that initial step to do those things. But it's also that fear of being great. That fear of being seen. Now that I'm out here, you know, like, you gotta be seen now. Especially if, you know, people are gonna know that you exist. And that fear of showing up in that way has held me back. I show up. But in my showing up, I'm inconsistent. That's them delays. You know? So, yeah, fear is just like, you know, on the flip side of fear, the dark side of fear, it holds you back. It holds you back. And with this beautiful energy of Scorpio, transcending our fears is like the name of the game. Because, you know, the saying goes, like, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And even death can't stop us. Especially when you know who you are on the soul level. When you know your existence is eternal. You know? So, we talked about fear and how it shows up. You know, one way through procrastination. You know, not doing what you said you're gonna do, taking your time, that self-sabotage. But also, you feel fear, which we spoke about earlier. Like, you feel it. It makes you anxious. And a lot of people suffer from anxiety. I'm one of those people that suffer from anxiety bad. And you would never think that. Me as a modern day sage, you know, being fearful. But, you know, I'm being transparent with y'all. You know, although I do feel fear, one thing that I'm thankful for is my ability to feel it and do it anyway. Like, even with me, like I said, going live this morning, I'm like a little anxious, like, what the hell? What am I gonna say? You know, my fear has been of not knowing what to say. But you can prepare yourself. You know, there's tools to help you work through your fears. It's just the point of showing up and taking action. It's about taking action to those fears. Showing up. Even if you do look stupid, show up. You showed up. Sometimes that be the biggest test and the biggest blessing in that experience if you're being tested. You know? Just showing up. So, you know, we experience anxiety, sweating, heart racing, palms sweating, you know, stuttering. You know, I had a friend who, when she got nervous, you know, she used to pass gas. She used to pass gas, and I'm like, girl, like, you are so crazy. You know, so, you know, the body does some, you know, different things when under that stress. You know, sometimes you may feel nauseated. Some people be so stressed out and anxious that they feel it in their lower back, in their chest, headaches. But, you know, that's just that energy letting you know that, look, we about to pump up this adrenaline and it's time to do something. You know, it's time to make some sort of changes here. You know, it's something here that the way that it manifests is through avoidance. Avoidance, like what we afraid of, sometimes we avoid completely, but it be on that other side of fear where your blessings are. Because once you have that power of knowing, that's where the change can happen. You can't make changes. Honestly, you can't make changes without having some sort of acknowledgement or idea of what needs to change, what needs to transform. spirit be on point, boy. So yeah, like, first and foremost, when it comes to like addressing your fears, you know, like I said, if you not even willing to talk about your fears, you know, how can you overcome them? And a lot of people know what their fears are, but they be so afraid to talk about it, to even think about it. I know, like, I've been there, so I ain't even judging. Like, I've been there where it was things that I've been, like, super fearful of, and I wouldn't even talk about it. Maybe a couple of months ago, I started working with another spiritual practitioner. And we were doing spiritual work together. And we got on the topic of death. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. You know, like, I'm good. I know I'm going to be here forever. You know, my thoughts. And, you know, he was sharing with me, like, well, you know, you can't be afraid. How are you afraid of death and you a spiritual practitioner and you a medium? I'd be like, yeah, that's why I don't do mediumship readings. You know, like, I'm good. Even though I can, I don't, because I don't want to. You know? I'm scared. So I'm like, you know, I have this, by the way, Santa Muerte candle sitting on my windowsill in the kitchen that I pulled out, knowing that I ain't burned it yet because I don't even know if I want her energy in here. For those who don't know, Santa Muerte is known as Holy Death. She is a Mexican saint, or even like her origins originate in ancient Aztec cultures, but she's known as Holy Death. And I'm like, I ain't even lighting that candle, but we got on this topic of death, and you know, I'm just like, no, I don't care. We not talking about it. I'm good. You know. And so I was trying to avoid that energy as much as possible because it gives me anxiety. Every time Santa Muerte come around, I'm like, oh my God, why are you here? Scared. Like, crippled, you know, like. And sometimes that energy makes me just sit for a minute and not be productive, because I'm like, why are you here? And she comes often. She comes often. I think, you know, she's a part of my spirit team. I don't even know why I say I think. She's a part of my spirit team. I had my personal experience with her personally where she actually touched me. That's a whole different story. You know, she tried to pull me up out of my body. As I was in like that astral projection state, or the sleep paralysis state, she tried to pull me up out of my body by one hand, like, come on, get up, and dragging me from my side. I'm like, no, what are you doing? Stop doing that. If you're gonna pull me up right. So she went behind me and pulled me up out of my body from my shoulders, and started dragging me backwards. And I was like, hell no, you're not dragging me to hell. And I woke up, you know, like I came back to my body, because that was very, you know, concerning. But like, her overall energy wasn't one to be fearful of. It was just my own personal perceived ideas of what she was doing and why she was doing it. You know, I allowed my perception to make me fearful. So, you know, even with dealing with that energy, her energy, you know, the energy of death, like, I try to avoid that energy at all costs. Like, we speak in life, you know, but that's the whole cycle of this planet, the planet. And even this Scorpio energy is the energy of transformation, which is birth, death, rebirth. So, you know, we tend to avoid those things that we're afraid of. But once we have an idea of, you know, we acknowledge what we're afraid of, we have to come to an acceptance of why we're afraid, you know, and to even validate that experience of being afraid, you know, validating that fear, you know, because it's real to you. It's real to you. You know? But is it really real? Is there soundproof in what you're saying would happen if that perceived threat or danger manifested? Is it validity in that? Can you validate that to be accurate? So that's when we got to take time out, you know, and not necessarily be moved by the feeling of it, but actually get from our emotions and think a little bit more logically about our fears. Is that accurate? Example, the fear of walking on the street at night. You know, if I was to say hello to these men on the side of the road, are they gonna snatch me up like I'm thinking they are just by speaking and looking at them? Is that really accurate? No, that sounds a little far-fetched. You know, once you think about it, you know, people crazy, but come on now, like, out of all the things in the world, is that really gonna happen? So you put yourself to the test. You walk down the street in the middle of the night, you see two men with hoods on. It's like you're inviting trouble. Talking amongst themselves on the side of the road, and as you walk by, you look them directly in the eye and you say, acknowledge them. You don't even gotta say hi. Just acknowledge them. I see you. I see you. And keep on going. And don't look back. And realize ain't nobody chasing you down. Ain't nobody even thinking about you. They carrying on with their whole conversation. You know? And so sometimes fear can have us like thinking like silly thoughts, like to our demise, instead of using that energy to make the best of it, you know? And just by experiencing that in this particular case scenario, you feel a little bit more empowered. You know, you feel badass, like, yeah, I faced my fear, and then they saw me and knew I wasn't playing because I looked them directly in the eye and was like, I see you. You know, so you become a little bit more braver, more confident, you know, and even more willing to take your guard down and even speak on a regular basis. So continuing to use this example, you decide to walk down the street at night any day now. You know, like, any day. It doesn't have to be any particular day or any particular reason. You walk down that street and you see these same men on the street. You decide to even walk at night because that's the only time that you can get your walk in. So you walk in at night. And you see these same two men on the side of the road talking. And it's becoming a habit now where you're seeing these same two men on the side of the road talking at night. To where y'all become familiar faces. And y'all start speaking to each other. Like, hey. Then one of the men finally see you one night and be like, oh, okay, I see that you on your nightly walk. I see you getting your exercise in. And then you realize you could really look into this man's face and see that he's really a gentle man. You be safe out here, okay? We got your back. You become friends eventually until one day you see these people in the daytime. And they're a whole different person. In the daytime, they dress to the nines, whatever it may be, but eventually y'all become friends because y'all been neighbors for years. So, that's the transformation in it. That's the transformation in it. So, yeah, just being aware of your fears and, testing them out to see if they're actually valid. You have that opportunity to transcend it and to transform it, right? So I'd be like, boy, I'm telling you, I wrote notes because, I wanted to stay on point with this because it's the whole message. But as I'm speaking about it, it's naturally flowing. So what I was afraid of not knowing, it's already up here because the next point is overcoming fear and being on the other side of fear. That's the coming from darkness into the light. On the other side of fear. Now. Knowing is power. Now. Knowing is power. Power puts you in a position to be on top of your circumstances. What I've come to find out is on the other side of fear, sometimes are your biggest blessings. I remember a couple of years ago, Spirit had me go through all these different activities to overcome my fears, which I did. One of those fears, as small as it may seem, was riding a roller coaster. It was the very last night of Fright Fest at Six Flags, and I was invited to go out to the Six Flags park, and I already made it up in my mind that I was going to get on every roller coaster because Spirit put me to the test. And when Spirit puts me to the test, sometimes I show up, sometimes I don't. Most of the times I show up because I know that in this life there are challenges, and these challenges are for a reason. And a lot of times they don't be just for me. So even with me sharing my experiences, the things that I go through don't necessarily be for me. So I gotta stop holding back and, you know, sharing and coming live and even speaking to you all. You know, I've been like possibly holding back other people's blessings or, you know, their empowerment, their inspiration, their encouragement. So I'm stopping it. You know, Spirit put me to the test today, and I'm, you know, realizing the importance of it. But, you know, I went through this training, went on just about every roller coaster in Six Flags, the bigger ones. And I felt so freaking liberated. Like, I actually enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed it. It was so much fun. Like, and I've always been afraid of roller coasters, even when I was little. Like, worst case scenario, oh, this mug gonna malfunction and, you know, we gonna fly off the track, or we gonna slam to the ground, or I'm gonna come up out this seat ain't securing me. You know, all these worst case scenarios, real thoughts though. And so I remember standing in line, going through my checklist of like, okay, don't be afraid. Okay, you see all these people getting on this roller coaster, ain't nobody fell out yet. So okay, you okay, you gonna be okay. You gonna get through this. You ain't falling out that seat. It ain't gonna malfunction. The seatbelt ain't gonna break. You gonna be good. You gonna be good. And, you know, I did it. I had the support of my daughters, and I did it. And it was a proud moment for me, but also for my children as well, because they got to see their mother overcome a fear. Because I let it be known, like, look, y'all, y'all already know I'm scared, but I'm going to do this because I'm, you know, I'm being called to do this. So, you know, so on the other side of that, these series of things that I had to do to overcome fears was the bigger test. Spirit put me in a position to overcome one of my biggest fears, which was public speaking. By overcoming those smaller fears, I elevated to a place where I was going to be seen in a more, how can I say, a bigger platform. And, you know, I just showed up and said yes, even though I was scared. I started working with a famous numerologist and doing workshops together. And this was my very first workshop, working with other heavy hitters that's in the conscious community, the conscious spiritual community. And we were doing a workshop on oh my god, I forgot already. What was it? What was it? I forgot. It was some years ago. I just knew that I had to come up with a whole speech and teachings and you know, a segment for my part of the workshop. And I'm like, I ain't never did this before. I'm scared. You know? And I voiced that. I made it very clear, like, look, I'm a little afraid. But I got through it. And the response from it was better than I expected. You know, and I had to do this several times. And each time it wasn't any less, less scarier. I was scared just as much. Because now here it is. I have eyes on me, seeing what I'm going to do next. So the next time I did it, scared. And, you know, there was a part of me that I held back, but the part that I did offer moved a lot of people to tears. And I was like, wow, the transformation in that, the healing in that, the gift in that. I did what I was supposed to do in that time frame. I showed up. I showed up and I brought what I had to bring. It wasn't about my delivery. It wasn't about how good I looked or how well I spoke. It was that the fact that I showed up and gave of myself. So that's the whole thing, the blessing behind it. Because that blessing wasn't just for me. It was for other people. Sometimes you got to realize, like, the blessing don't be just for you. It be for those who you are to bless. Taking your darkness and turning it into light to illuminate the way for other people. And that makes me think of this Eminem song. He says, what's the name of that song? He says, I'm not afraid to take a stand. Everybody, come hold my hand. We'll walk this road together through the storms. Something, something. Something, something. But the whole point is, like, in your fear, you're not alone. You're never alone. You're never alone. Like, even with your spirit guides, your divine protection that's around you, you are never alone. So fear is just meant to be that push to get you out of a certain comfort zone of being stuck in your head and actually taking action and living your life. Transforming from your darkness into your light. So I just want to quickly say, now, whatever you may be going through in this season, especially in this season, you have a very beautiful energy to support you through your fear. Whatever you thought you may have lost, this is your season to get it back. This is your season to regenerate whatever wounds that you may have faced. This is your season to regenerate. This is your season to call your power back to you. And to know how powerful you are. This is the season for you to transform your circumstances and transform your life. You're being supported with the passion to do so. You're being supported to take action. But the whole point is to get out of your head. Get out of your head in the negative aspect and use it to really think and not allow your emotions to move you. So, ultimately, we all know we got this. Y'all got this. I got this. We got this. If you are listening to this message You got this. You didn't stop by for any reason, and especially if you're still here now. I want to thank you, Alicia, for being here. I saw your messages, but I didn't read them in detail just yet because I'm allowing spirit to be channeled. But I just want to thank you all. Yes, we got this. We got this, and it is my desire for everyone to level up in this season, to transform, to use this energy for their benefit, no matter how dark the situation is. Just know that that situation is happening for a reason. It's happening so you can transform it. It's not your death sentence. It's not your demise. It's not causing any threat. It's not meant to cause you any harm. It's meant for you to move beyond it into a higher state of being. So if you want to book a reading with me, you can book a reading with me on my website, themoderndaySage.com. It's in my bio. And also, check out my candle line. A lot of times, the past may hold us back. And that's another thing I want to mention too. The spiritual work involved. Like, I ain't mentioned none of that. The spiritual work involved. Besides it being mental, I find the tools that I need to support myself. When I don't feel safe, I'm doing protection work. When I'm feeling heavy, anxious, I'm cleansing my aura. And this is a continuous thing, like in that energy of change. It's like chaos. It's conflict. And the best thing that you can do in those times is to ground yourself. Find whatever it is that makes you happy. Ground yourself. Cleanse your energy because it's an emotional time. And just know that you're protected. Even if you have to do some sort of protection work. Just so you can feel safe. So, yeah. We got this. If you need my help and my support, you can always reach out to me, message me, or you can visit my website. Okay, you guys. Thank you all for joining, and till we meet again. Peace.